On today's Newsmakers, the man who destroyed a Satanist display, a miracle survival, and how a famous singer found Jesus. That and more coming up. Welcome to Newsmakers, a show where we go behind the headlines each week to bring you interviews with pastors, entertainers, politicians, and other notable figures. On today's Newsmakers, we begin with Newsboys frontman Michael Tait. He's going to share how a sermon about hell brought him to Jesus and a whole lot more about his story. So let's welcome Michael to Newsmakers. Michael, I'm excited to have you here today, and we're talking about a number of things, but the big thing is Christmas music. You decided to put out some new Christmas tracks on this amazing project. What drove you to do that?
Oh my gosh, that's a power-packed question, Billy. I grew up a fan of big band. My dad was a pastor. He raised 9 kids, from the baby of 9 kids, 5 girls. 4
9? I did not know that about you. 9 kids. Wow.
Yeah. 5 girls, 4 boys. A mom told me in secret more than once that I was her favorite. Baldy no one. But I grew up listening to Mel Torme, Frank Sinatra, Tony Bennett, the great late Tony Bennett, and of course Nat King Cole. When other kids were listening to Michael Jackson and Earth, Wind and Fire and Stevie Wonder, I was into and I like them too. But I just love the crooner side of things. And Christmas time, because of my day job with the Newsboys, Christmas time allows me to be that character, if you will. So Capitol Records is my label, and Capitol was like, let's make some Christmas songs. Let's see what happens. So last year we put out 3. This year we put out 3. The CD is called "I Believe in Christmas," and it's some of the classics. "Oh Holy Night," "Chestnuts," Christmas song. "Oh Come Are You Faithful," "All I Want for Christmas," a nod to good old Mariah Carey. So, but it's all done in that fancy throwback kind of vibe that I live for. I just love it. So that's Christmas time is the way to do it.
It is. And you have had, just career-wise, a really fascinating career. Few people have had a career that spans as long as yours have in music in general, and in particular when we talk about Christian music and everything that you have accomplished, not just in one band that is very popular, but in 2, doing your own solo projects. This is a loaded question, but somebody like you, I love getting to ask this. What is the biggest lesson that God has taught you as you have navigated through these decades in music?
Oh man. Well, Dad told me as a kid, he goes, "Son, if you don't mean it, don't sing it." So when I write songs or I cover songs, music in general, I've got to get, as Bono says, who I love, you have to get inside the song. So learn to get inside the song and become the song, because if you believe it, feel it, sing it with passion, then the listener is going to believe it and feel it with that same passion. So that's one thing. That's one big thing I've learned. Just to stay true to who you are when you're doing what you do.
Yeah, you mentioned obviously you're one of 9. I knew you had a lot of siblings. I didn't realize it was that many. Your dad, being a pastor, right. At what point for you, because I actually don't know this about you, obviously you grew up in the church. At what point would you say for you it really became real, that it became your faith that you were carrying through?
Believe it or not, great question. I was late. I grew up in that family. Dad was also a cab driver, so he drove cabs, and they preached in church on Sunday, common evangelist. I often say, if you got in my dad's cab, there was a good chance you were going to be saved in more ways than one. What was the question again?
Well, just when did you kind of feel like, I'm owning this now?
Yeah. I was about 17 or 18. I was my senior year in college. A guy named Jerry Johnston came to preach at our high school, Riverdale Baptist High School, private school in Upper Marlboro, Maryland. And he preached on what preachers don't preach about much anymore. He preached on the subject of hell and how real hell is and how beautiful heaven is, and how, you can't get saved on the back of your dad or your mom. It's not osmosis. It's a thing where you have to be one-on-one with God. And I got fired up that day, man, pun intended. I got fired up, and I went to the, forward and for prayer, and I accepted God for myself as my Savior that day in high school. And I walked that, tried to walk that line all my life, I've had my moments. God knows. Thank God for 1 John 1:9. I know you agree with me.
We all do, right? Yeah. We all have those moments. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but yeah.
It turns out we're sinners saved by grace. So no excuse for the fact. And but God has been so faithful to this boy, so faithful to me when I had been grossly unfaithful more than once. But he keeps bringing me back to the cross. Keeps back to the and really enough, the voice he gives me, God speaks to me, Billy, through my voice. When I sing and how I feel when I sing and what I sing, it comes back at me like a boomerang. And God goes, I love you, boy. Stay the course. It's okay. I will never leave you, forsake you. Confess your sin, right your wrongs, and keep walking forward. You know, we're not here forever. We're aliens and strangers, travelers, just waiting for our time to go into glory. So.
Well, thank you. I so appreciate you taking the time today, and we will catch up very, very soon.
Thank you, Billy. Bless you, buddy.
Michael's story is a powerful reminder that a relationship with Jesus changes everything. Up next, we'll talk with the wife of a street preacher who was shot in the head back in November and who has miraculously been making progress. This is Newsmakers on the CBN News Channel. Welcome back to Newsmakers on the CBN News Channel. Our next guest is Zulia Schmidt. She is the wife of Hans Schmidt. He is the man who was shot in the head November 15th while sharing the gospel on a busy Arizona street. She's going to join us to share details of what unfolded and how people can be praying for his recovery. Without any further ado, let's welcome Zulia to the show. Zulia, you have been through quite a bit over the past month, and I appreciate you joining us today. I wanted to start with the beginning of the story. On November 15th last month, your husband was shot, and this is a story that has been in headlines across the country, across the world. Can you take us through what happened that day?
So my husband was street preaching. I mean, he's been doing that for over a year. And usually he street preaches for 30 minutes before every evening service for our church. And I remember that day, like, he just ended street preaching early. And I thought that was odd. I was like, maybe he's just not feeling it tonight or something. And then, yeah, like, I didn't even know what had happened. I just saw him, like, I heard him loading up the sound system back in the car. He gets in the car, drives the car to the church. And at this point I had seen that, you know, he was bleeding, and I'm like, are you okay? I thought someone maybe just threw a bottle at him. I had no idea what really had happened. He drives our vehicle to the church, unloads the sound system. He's about to get her daughter down, and I'm like, no, like, you can't, like, you're all bloody. We need to go home and get you cleaned up. And luckily, my brother showed up at that point. He's like, no, we need to get you to the hospital. So my brother ends up driving him to the hospital. And on the way to the hospital is when he kind of started throwing up and stuff. And as soon as we got there to the emergency room, he started seizing. And, like, even the doctors and the medical staff didn't even know that that this was a gunshot wound. They thought that maybe
none of you knew. Yeah. I mean, that it's so crazy that you were with him. He's driving. I mean, you had no idea. You assumed it was an assault. That was the initial.
Yeah.
But at that point, once you got to the hospital, then they realized that something more was going on.
Yeah, they didn't even, until they did a CT scan afterwards, then they realized, oh, there's a bullet in him and stuff. So, yeah, then that was pretty much it. That was the whole situation, and it's just kind of a waiting game, and they don't.
What was your reaction to hearing that, Zulia? What was to hearing that there was a bullet? Because that's a very different situation than what you thought had happened.
Yeah. Oh, my heart sank. Like, yeah, it's, you know, from, okay, you know, yeah, maybe he needs some stitches to, oh gosh, like, this is way worse than I had even, you know, assumed it was. And yeah, it was, I just felt sick to my stomach once I realized it was a gunshot wound. And And then I remember, like, even when we got to the urgent care, like, he was like non-responsive. So it was hard.
And you, I mean, you have 2 young children, and here you are in a situation. What were the doctors telling you as far as once they realized what was happening, and where are we now? We're a little more than a month out from this shooting, and he was in ICU with very little hope. Where is he right now? How is he faring right now?
So right now, he's made a lot of progress, you know, I mean, but in the days of progress, there's still frustration. There's still difficult days. Yes, we're grateful, but it doesn't mean, you know, the days aren't hard. You know, I'm like, just see your loved one in that situation. It's not easy, especially when, you know, he was the main provider for our household, and he would go to work, and now it's like you see your person, it's like a whole reset. They have to relearn everything. And the brain is such a sensitive thing that we don't know still, you know, like what's going to happen, what tomorrow's going to look like, what a year from now is going to look like. I mean, we're hopeful and we're praying and we're contending for like a supernatural recovery, but there's just so much unknown still, so much uncertainty. But it's like every day we've been able to witness a miracle, from that first night where they're like, you're going to start seeing blood just come out through like the holes, like his ears and stuff, to it's like he made it past day 1. And now here we are a little over a month. And it's like the progress he has made, it's just amazing. I mean, now he understands a bit more like the situation, but we still don't know 100% how much he understands because he's unable to communicate at the moment, you know. So, but
he is awake. But he is awake, and he is making progress right now.
Yes,
that is incredible, and it's something you're giving us prayer points here, because I was going to ask you how to pray, but I think what you're describing, you're telling us what we can be praying for, and anybody listening or watching this, you know, praying for you, praying for your children, praying for him. And as far as finding the person who did this, do the police have any leads on that?
Honestly, I don't even think so. I don't know at this point. In a way, like, I don't even care. I don't have the energy to really worry about that. Yes, I wish that person wasn't on the street. That would bring me some comfort and peace, but at the same time, it's like the harm has already been done, you know, like.
Well, and I want to thank you for your faith and the way that you have handled yourself, and, you know, it's inspiring people, and it's speaking to people, and it's showing people what faith. You were saying before, I can't even believe, you know, that I've been able to be this calm and be this peaceful. And I think that's evidence of faith that people are seeing in you and in your family. And I just appreciate you. I know it's crazy right now, sharing with us so that people know how to be praying for you and your family. Zulia, really appreciate your time. Please keep praying for both Hans and Zulia and also their family during this uncertain time. This is Newsmakers on the CBN News Channel. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Newsmakers on the CBN News Channel. For our final segment, we are sitting down with Michael Cassidy. He's a man who made national headlines very recently for tearing down and beheading a satanic display in the Iowa State Capitol. He's going to explain why he believes it was the right thing to do and what comes next in his case. Let's welcome him to Newsmakers. So, Michael, you have been in the headlines over the past few days after tearing down, essentially decapitating the Satanic Temple's symbol, this giant symbol that they placed in the Iowa State Capitol. Take us through what led you to take that action.
The state of Iowa put this satanic icon in the Iowa Capitol a couple of weeks ago. I don't know exactly when, but they put it up. I saw news of it on social media, and hopefully, like almost the entire country, I would hope, but perhaps not. When I saw it, I thought, how on earth can satanic icons be in the Capitol? And I thought, you know, it's some kind of oversight, you know, some little bureaucracy. they approved it, but nobody knew about it. And once people find out about it, they'll take it down, because how can you honor Satan in like they're doing? And so I saw on Wednesday that it had not been taken down, and I didn't know what the process was with Iowa, who the decision makers were, what arguments they were making, but I decided to get a plane ticket, go up to Iowa, and look at the thing myself. And I'll tell you what, whatever emotion you may have felt looking at it online, it's completely different when you are actually in the Capitol. You're next to the rotunda. I'm an American. I've been in the Navy for my entire adult life. I fought to protect the country, and it wasn't to protect Satan. We say, so help me God, not so help me Satan. And then being in the Capitol and looking at this statue, this icon, it became very clear to me that this could not stand. It could not. It was intolerable for it to be there. And so I did what I did. I kind of cleaned up afterward. There was some, debris, some garbage, really, that had gone outside of the little rectangle inside the Capitol that was allowed by the Capitol for them to be there. Put everything back in there so nobody would trip on a candle or something like that. Then I went back into the security terminal and said, hey, I'm back. And this is what I did. I'm turning myself in, and they gave me the citation, and then I went on my merry way.
It's interesting because you've ignited quite a debate, right? Even among Christians, you've got, two sides of this, people who are saying, people should be praising you for this and celebrating you because you have taken down a symbol that honestly shouldn't be there. Even if there's a holiday argument, it's interesting to note that the Satanists aren't. By the way, these Satanists, the Satanic Temple is an atheist group, technically, which is interesting. And that's a whole other conversation. But there's no Christmas celebration happening here, right? This is the time of year we celebrate Christmas. And so that symbol has nothing to do with Christmas. The other side will say, well, we shouldn't be destroying property. We shouldn't do this. And, you have to allow more free speech, not less, right? So how do you respond to that debate that you've ignited with this?
I think that it's the wrong debate to have, that it's extremely simple, that, there can be, we could talk about this for hours, for days. There are people that are much more intelligent than I am, much more well-versed in making good Christian, good legal arguments. But it really boils down to God is good and deserves praise, and Satan is evil and does not deserve praise. And it's not they're not equal. There is an example that I gave earlier today, I think, was, if there was some, fake religious group that they call themselves a religion, and they decided that they wanted to honor ISIS or honor Osama bin Laden for 9/11, and they got a permit from a bureaucrat to put a display of the 6 foot, 8 foot tall Osama bin Laden inside a state capitol. Who's going to defend that? They're going to be, of course, there's always going to be somebody, but that doesn't mean that it's a good argument. That doesn't mean that we have to listen to it. That there's a lot of I think, misconceptions about what the Satanic Temple, what the devil is. The devil is bad, and it's not something that we should promote.
Yeah, and just as we round out to a close here, you have a lot of attention on this. You've done some interviews. You're talking about it. It's a unique circumstance because most people, when something like this happens, you went right up. You said, "Look, this is what I did. This is why I did it." You very clearly have stated why you believe that this should not have been there. What is your final message to those who, are on the other side? They're not understanding. You've said it. You've given the reason, but I want to kind of give you a chance to make your appeal to them because this seems like something that you passionately feel very strongly about. For people who often what we do
I think just as citizens, as Christians, it's easy to tolerate a slow change, a slow inflow of evil in society and our lives. And an example I've given is the frog in the pot of boiling water. That things seem fine at first, but after a while, that things that would have 30 years ago, our grandparents would never have accepted, regardless of your current faith background, regardless of if you're a Christian or not, or how strong your faith and active your faith in Christianity is. I think we can pretty much agree that our grandparents' generation would never have tolerated this, let alone the founders when they were creating our legal documents that we adhere to today. And so it should be a wake-up call that the state is allowing, or has been allowing, this sort of evil to be promoted. And the one example I'll give that's perfect for this is that one of the pieces of hate mail that I got was from an Iowa father. I think he was from Iowa, that he was mad at me, not over any, First Amendment issue, but he was mad because he was unable to show his daughter the statue to the devil in the state capitol. And he wanted, for good, that he wanted to show that this was an example of, hey, how cool is this, that we've got the devil in the capitol? And how broken of a society are we if that's the mindset that a parent has for their child? And so I think there's some deeper questions that we need to have about ourselves and about our country.
Well, Michael, I appreciate you taking the time, taking us through the story. We'll continue to check in with you as it develops.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
There is certainly no shortage of debate around Michael and his actions. We will continue here on Newsmakers to cover the story as it unfolds, and we'll be right back in just a moment. That's all for today's Newsmakers. Thank you for watching, and be sure to head over to the CBN News YouTube channel. That's where you will find the full interviews that you watched on today's episode. We'll see you again next week.